Okay, hello. This is Brandon Inhofer, and I chose to write about topic 11. Further EU enlargement will cause a crisis in the EU, and more specifically amongst I suppose, the citizens of Europe in regards to the popularity of the EU. And with my research that I conducted, I found that as time is going on, it appears like that the EU and is maybe becoming less and less popular, especially regarding expanding into like further countries, like for instance former Balkan countries and like the ones like of Yugoslavia and also Turkey, maybe as far east as that. And it seems that maybe perhaps a bit of the public is a little bit apprehensive about the idea of Turkey or some of these countries in the former Yugoslavia joining. It seems to be a little bit not so well liked amongst EU public and the population. And one interesting fact that I found out was that I think it was in 2009 I read a statistic that that there was about 50% of the people in the EU who were for enlargement of the EU, and it was those against it was like only in the 30%, something like the mid 30s, like maybe only like 34-35% of people opposed the EU expanding any further than its current borders. But as of 2011, the support for it was dropped to well below 50%, and over 50% of the people were actually against the EU expanding any further. I mean, of course, there's many reasons, and like I guess each country has its own problems, and I guess a lot of it may have to do with the economic crisis that we've had in the banks and everything. There hasn't been a lot of good news going on, and so but anyway, I don't think that a 29th EU state is anywhere closer to being achieved at this moment. I think that the 28th Croatia was pretty hard. It was hard enough to pass through, and I think that a lot of these countries, people say that they're really poor or there's lots of corruption, and so I think if these countries were to eventually try to join in the EU, that it would be I think wise for them to somewhat get up to the EU standards a little bit more. And I think even what's interesting that I found out was that the support amongst the public, for instance, even amongst the more Christian nations, or I guess these traditional Christian Europeanized nations like Norway, Switzerland, and Iceland, and they share a similar culture with the EU and regular members, but they are, even the support of them joining the EU is actually, amongst the EU public, is actually gone down quite a lot. So it's quite interesting that with everything that's gone on, that just the support of the EU and expanding is not as high as it used to be. Like I said, there are many factors, many reasons. And then I think that, but a big part of it has to do with that the EU eventually encompassing Turkey, Albania, and Kosovo is probably not really that popular right now because a lot has to do probably with culture and religious differences. Uh, I think it's, in my opinion, what I wrote about in my paper, one thing, where I compared the EU adopting or inviting Turkey into the EU, and then was kind of uh, like it would be like for America to invite, or not invite, but to join the same union as Mexico, and it's it's not that very popular. I mean, it may be one thing for Canada and America maybe to have like some in the future, something that's like the EU, but I don't think that a lot of Americans would be very happy about being in the same like political union as or economic union as Mexico, and I think that that's kind of where a lot of Europeans are with Turkey. Um, and I wrote about that, and well, because I'm from America, and so I've had I know about the people's opinions and feelings about Mexico, and I think a lot of it is kind of like similar with in regards to Europe and Turkey, because I think a lot of Europeans think that there's lots of corruption there, or there's just bad things that happen, like people don't have a lot of freedom, so, and they feel that it's probably like a third world part of, well, of the world, so underdeveloped. So I think that, so in my opinion, I think kind of understand what Europeans are saying and about being in the same union as Turkey would be like America and Mexico, and I could see lots of objections from that, especially because I'm an American and I know how Americans kind of have, even though a lot of it is probably the media, but I still know what it's like. And well, of course, then there are other things, you know, for Turkey, like there's its issues with Cyprus, uh, about the northern part, which other European countries do not recognize as a country, but the Turkish people do. So that's kind of a bit of stumbling block for them. I also wrote about the EU and then Turkey and its problems with perhaps maybe Armenia, because Turkey was, if I remember right, it was accused of committing um, genocide against the Armenian people, and that is something that Turkey has never really admitted to, and I think that before that they could ever join the EU, I think that that is something that they need to discuss, you know, and say that they're a bit sorry about that. But then, of course, there's the minority and women's rights and democracy issues, and there's some military issues about Turkey joining the EU, and I think Germany might be scared because eventually Turkey will probably have more people, and though I don't think that they can have more, there's a specific number of European Union MEPs they can have, but I think that it's kind of still scary anyway. They will have a lot, and um, so. But one quote that I found really interesting, and I read about it, or I read from some newspaper, and it was from Nicolas Sarkozy, and the former French president, and he was talking about that Europe should have borders, and that it must give itself borders, and so all countries should not, they shouldn't have this idea, or they shouldn't have a desire to become members of Europe, because some countries don't belong in Europe, and he was referring to Turkey, and I think that he did have a good point, and that is a thing that is going to definitely block probably Turkey in the future from ever joining. Uh, and of course, I found that, I included in my paper that there was this uh, people people were asked in a poll in France and Austria about the idea of including uh, Turkey in the EU, and most people were not that happy about that, or they were not that enthused about that. It was a bit of an outdated poll, but I doubt that it has got any more popular in the last few years. Of course, well, I've already gone up to 10 minutes now. I didn't even intend for this. But there's other states. There's like every state has its own issues. There's Kosovo and there's Serbia, and hypothetically, or it could be that Kosovo or Serbia could be one of the next ones. And actually, a Serbian prime minister talked about Serbia being the 29th member. I don't know how long that's going to take because, like I say, with all these other countries that could join, there's so many issues like organized crime and corruption and human trafficking that's supposedly going on and gun running. So I don't know about if any one of these is going to be within the next couple of years. I'm not sure. And of course Bosnia is another country, and Macedonia has its own problems too. A lot has to do with its name, because of Greece, and the Greeks don't feel that Macedonia should be able to call themselves that. So I think it's 28 is where we're at right now, 28 members, and I don't know when the next member is going to join. I think it's going to be in a while. And well, to wrap things up, I just would like to say that well, this whole thing about the EU and integrating further and inviting is not the right word, but I guess we can call it that kind of. But having more countries come in and join the EU group, it's not a really popular idea amongst EU members these days, and there are lots of countries that do qualify, but I think it was probably hard enough last time to get the last member, the 28th member, Croatia. And I think if they were to invite any members right now, it would be really unpopular and probably actually cause a huge crisis, which was my intention of writing about this paper, is to talk about the problems that each country has and the possibility, the crisis, like the popularity of that the EU would have. And I don't think that the EU would be taken as, maybe in a way, kind of like as serious as it is, or respected maybe, because of the problems that a lot of these countries that want to join, like Turkey and Kosovo and Serbia and Albania, a lot of these countries, but they have so many problems that they really, I think if they were to join and and want to be part of the EU, they must develop themselves better before joining and embrace ideas and cultural norms of the regular EU members. Otherwise, there's going to be a really bad popularity problem, like a big crisis amongst the EU citizens, because like I pointed out in a couple statistics and a couple facts, that popularity for the EU is going down all the time, and it seems, or it has been, seems like it, and it's becoming more negative. Like in the media, watching stuff, it doesn't seem like the EU doesn't get that good even news coverage as it did before when it was a new thing. So, and of course there's been, economic issues which haven't helped, but well, I think that's pretty much it. They just these countries need to develop themselves a lot more before they ever think about it, and maybe in the future they'll have a chance about joining. But that's about it. Well, I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you.